Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Katherine Horton and with me is Melanie Vritschan. Today we are giving you ICATOR.
Sorry, it says off air still. I don't know if this
it says live on my end. Hang on.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just check because we had a lot of glitches. I'm just going to check the are we live? Yes, we are live. We are live.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's all fine. Does it say still offline for you?
For me it says off air, but
okay,
might be a bug on my side. I don't know.
It's you are on air. I think you're on air. Hang on, let me just okay, because I'm preparing for absolutely everything. No, I think you're on air. I think that's
okay.
We will see. So anyway, so we were sabotaged into oblivion again today, many ways. But we're here to bring you great news, really, from ICATOR and many today. So much has happened and we're really pleased. So I will pass the floor straight away to Melanie so that she can tell us the great news from ICATOR.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Catherine. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have indeed great news to tell you. Last week we spoke about the restart of our scanning project, which means that we're scanning the ICATOR members for non-consensual implantation with nanotechnology implant devices, and that we're doing this in a Faraday cage in a controlled environment with the help of one of the biggest universities here in Belgium and universities professors, and that this project is about to restart again. We have a next meeting scheduled in August for the calibration scanning, and Catherine can explain in a moment what that means. But one day of scanning costs us, let's say with all the travel expenses, 1,500 euros. We had done the first fundraising video, which was very successful due to the generous donation of ANM and a few other smaller donors, so that we could at least secure this first calibration scanning that will now happen in August. And then afterwards, we would like to invite the ICATOR members very quickly after that to do another group scanning to provide our members with the proof, with the scientific evidence they need regarding the crimes committed against them. So we had started last week another fundraising appeal to be able to organize this second scanning very quickly now, probably this fall. And I have the good news to tell you today that we have collected, again, thanks to ANM, 1/3 of the amount we need for this second member scanning. So thank you very much, Anne, again for your great support. So let's say we're a third there. And today we're launching another appeal to hopefully be able to raise at least another 1,000 euros to be able then to schedule the ICATOR member scanning this autumn, as I said, maybe September or October. So, but today is first to announce that we are, let's say, almost there, a third there at least, and hopefully by the end of this video, we will have raised sufficient funds to immediately proceed to scheduling the second scanning with our members.
So I have to say we are so grateful to our donors, because there were a lot of donors, but there were 2 donors who really, I think, stretched to the absolute max that they could donate, and they have been keeping us afloat. And Amalia is one of them, and Anne M is another, and I think they will go down in the Hall of Fame, of history of people who have been really supporting the biggest human rights effort ever.
Correct.
Of mankind.
There was also Hannelore.
Oh yes, Hannelore, of course. Yeah. Yes. So sorry. Yes, you're right.
A German donor. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And they have just blown our mind, and we are so incredibly grateful. So the other question that has also been asked is why can't people come already at the scanning in August? And the reason is because it will not be a scanning as such. It will be a half scanning using Melanie and me as a calibration candle, and then really trying to hone down on the measurement protocol. So the issue is that we really need the entire day to work all out with the professor and pretty undisturbed, so that we can go down into nitty gritty and make sure that the entire chain of data acquisition and data analysis is down to a T. The problem is that if you allow a few other victims to be scanned, that invariably takes time away from us being able to work with the professor. And given that the day comes at 1,200 euros, it is so incredibly precious. And besides, on that day, you will not have the perfect measurement solution. You will basically have the beta version, the one that is still in testing. So that's not what you want for your court case. What you really want for your court case is you go in under controlled condition, you get scanned, and then you get the report of the scan, straight off the print, so that you can take it to court. Now, in August, that's not what's going to happen. In August, what's going to happen is that Melanie and I are going to pop in, pop out, be scanned, over and over again, and we'll look at the data acquisition chain. We'll look at the corrections that need to be applied to get the analysis just right. And that will be a lot of back and forth and tinkering and working with the postdoc and the professor. So it will be very technical. And as I said, because everything is still under progress, getting refined, you will not get the best test result, So this is why.
That's correct. And we really want to finalize this measurement protocol, as Katherine says, to the T. So that the day when we're inviting the ICATOR members to get scanned, that we're really sure that we get positive results and that we put all the chances on our side. Because what we do not want is to waste resources and have people come from all over the world almost. Because I can say from previous scannings in the third decade here, we really had people flying in from all over the world to get scanned. So this time we want to make sure that we have worked on this measurement protocol, that it's all set up, and that we all agree on that this is the measurement protocol we use, that it is correct, so that we have really the highest chance of getting positive results and getting the victims the scientific evidence they need for the court cases. I also would like to add, as we said last time, I think that if we have victims that are currently in court cases, we have a few cases where Katherine is also consulting them and helping them. They can be sure that they will be invited with priority, so that they have the scientific evidence on the day of their court case, and they have the report present. But just to explain it again, we really need this calibration scanning in August, just Katherine and I, with the professors, to be able to establish this measurement protocol. And then when we invite the members, that we have all the chances on our side to get scientific evidence and valuable data that we can present in court.
Exactly. So this is the rough plan. And the idea is also that we would like to already fund the next day after that, which will be open for the victims. And should we totally fail to get the required funding, then really we have to ask every victim to pay, which at the end of the day is not too much to ask, given that, you will have world-class research services, at your fingertips. And for everything else, or the medical tests that you need to get done, you need to pay something as well. But we want to bring the price down, because we're also aware that a lot of targets are at the absolute limit of their existence, and those who are the ones who need the evidence the most urgent, or the most urgently. So this is why we want to bring it down, and we also have huge extra costs associated with this, which Melanie and I, we're also targets, and we're also having our finances absolutely demolished. So what this fundraising is about is to cover our extra expenses so that this entire thing can happen, and also bring down the cost for the victims. We still have to work out how many victims we can scan per day at an event like that. And the more we can scan, the less the individual price. So if we can set up a factory production line, of just you go in, you get scanned, you get the result, bam, ready, then that's of course the best thing. But to get there, we have to do an awful lot of work, So this is what
we're aiming to do, is that this is a permanent collaboration, a permanent program that we have as ICATOR together with the university, and that, as Katherine says, that we establish a kind of production line, that we really know what we're doing, that we have the measurement protocol ready, and that we can bring in as many members as possible to get scanned. But for this to be able to do that, as I said, is that this calibration scanning in August has to go ahead, and we have to finalize the measurement protocol. So that's what we're currently working on. And we're already working in the view of, we're doing this fundraising in the view of to doing the second scanning, and then to be able to organize it pretty quickly once the calibration scanning is over. So as you probably know by now, you know how to donate. Katherine always puts it in the description. Also, the GoFundMe page is there for the members that are, or for people that are not in the Eurozone. And for people that are in the Eurozone that want to support us, they can use the IBAN number of the IBAN account of ICATOR. This is the one good news, and we hope to be able to announce more good news shortly. The other news that I had to share is that often we victims, we get the comments that we do not actually know how mentally ill we are because we are no experts in this field. We are not psychologists, we are not psychiatrists. Well, first of all, it's not a psychological problem, as I always say, it's a technological problem. And there we are certainly experts, or have more expertise, at least that as non-victims, and especially psychiatrists or psychologists that have never come across this problem before. But as this is a comment we often get, I must have decided to dig a little bit deeper and look a little bit deeper into psychology, and this is why I have followed a university course of the Australian university in Monash in Australia, and I have looked this university up and decided to take this one because it's particularly known for the high quality of their psychological sciences. And I think it has been rated number 43 of the 200 most important universities in the world. So I chose this university on purpose, and I have followed this course, and I can announce today with pleasure that I have actually succeeded my studies. And Katherine can show my newly acquired diploma in a moment. So at least when we are again faced with such, sorry to say, but ignorance or such derogative comments like, well, you don't actually know anything about psychology, so that you're not aware of your psychological illness or psychiatric illness, then I can at least respond that I do actually have a degree in psychology as well. So I think this is a good thing, and I'm happy that I have succeeded.
Let me show you. Let me actually share my screen and show you a certificate while you're talking about it. So here is the certificate of achievement for Melanie, and it was the course on Introduction to Psychology, the Psychology of Personality. Here we are, successfully completed.
Yeah. So, and there it says a little bit what the course entailed and what it was about, what are the learning outcomes, and so yeah, I'm pleased I succeeded, and at least we have something to counter when we get this typical comment that we don't know because we have not studied psychology. And so, yeah. But again, it's good to have it, but again, it is not a psychological problem, it is a technological problem. And certainly there, with what happened to us, we have become experts, and we have a certain expertise in this field. And by the way, Katherine is a physicist, so I think we cannot at least if this comment is made to her, she probably knows more about physics than these people. That is for sure.
Well, if that comment is made to me, I will, I think, laugh my absolute socks off. I also would like to say, actually, this is on a more serious point. This is, you know, a common problem that psychiatrists and psychologists come across with incredible arrogance. And of course, as a high energy physicist, I will just as snootily reply that I'm sorry, you know, this is just a pseudoscience as far as I'm concerned. But more importantly, what we're talking about here, anything to do with implants, with neurotechnology, with the directed energy weapon attacks, and so on, that falls squarely into the field of physics, engineering, and neuroscience, not into psychiatry or psychology. And having worked in medical physics, I can assure you that already doctors have very, very low understanding of physics and maths and engineering. It's really I was shocked at Oxford, so I was really shocked. But if you go elsewhere, it's even lower, you know, because at least we do have selection criteria. But the point is that these people need to realize that they're basically not qualified to comment. It's just as simple. So it doesn't matter what the psychiatrist says or psychologist, because he has not studied the engineering and the physics of the implants, and he most certainly hasn't studied white-collar crime and organized crime to actually place this into the wider context. So their statements are, it's certainly in front of court, null and void. And if you take, for example, this effect of hearing voices, I often make the point that if you just have an illness, which is due to some sort of chemical imbalance in the brain or some disease, some virus, or some brain damage, random damage and random illness cannot, it simply cannot, first of all, produce perfect human voices, then also, instead of just random noise, say, you know, and on top of that, produce perfect grammar, okay, and then on top of that, produce perfect language and perfect grammar in exactly the sort of language that you speak. So, you know, you would have to have an illness that creates perfect English speech in England and perfect Spanish speech in Spain. Now, that sort of disease doesn't exist. So it immediately follows that what you actually have is a chip implant. You've got a little transponder, a little antenna, and a little microphone in your ear, and that's that. Okay, so anybody who's got voice to skull, where they have to look is in the field of technology. And whatever psychiatrists say, I'm sorry, you can just show them the hand and say, excuse me, psychiatrist, but for the last 100 years, you didn't manage to work it out that it was actually high tech, you know, so goodbye. And it's about qualification. So all of this is the field of, you know, counterterrorism, counterintelligence, engineering, maths, and physics. Psychiatry doesn't even enter. Psychiatry enters as forensic psychiatry when you want to analyze why the perpetrators are so messed up in the head, you know, I think.
Yes, and then also I think if we look at the victims and look at the people that usually turn to ICATOR and come to us and complain about being non-consensual implanted, is that I usually find that these people were you know, had very well functioning lives before. They were highly performant, often had very high level careers and succeeded very well. This is an extremely educated group, so there are a lot of graduates, postgraduates, so really very educated group. This is what I see. And from what I understand, people that suffer from schizophrenia, mostly when you talk to their environment, they have never come across as really, really normal, you know, ever in their life. They often said that they were always a bit strange. And typically, schizophrenia starts in your teens, I think. So for somebody to become certainly suddenly schizophrenic when they're at the end of their 30s or beginning of their 40s, which most of these victims are, well, although they get younger and younger, and we have, as I said last time, more families that come with young children that want to be tested and scanned. Well, that is very unlikely that somebody just suddenly turns schizophrenic in the end of their 30s, at the beginning of their 40s, when they had displayed no psychiatric symptoms ever in their life, and had usually well-functioning life with pretty high-level careers, I must say. So that's the first thing. Also, we know that schizophrenia can be treated with medicine, usually gets better with medicine. When you're a victim of voice-to-skull technology, that will not improve with psychopharmaca, and it will actually really damage your health furthermore. So personally, I'm very touched and upset by these false psychiatric diagnoses and commitments, as we have just, I've just experienced myself also. And what Katherine says is true. At least, I don't know what your impression was, but what happened at the events at Hospital Harassment, I indeed had the impression that these psychiatrists were absolutely, well, first of all, came across as me as very arrogant, and did not call their judgment at all into question, and were absolutely not ready to consider a differential diagnosis, or that this problem could or do any research of if this type of harassment really exists, if the technology exists, if the patents exist. And also then, of course, the top of the iceberg, so to speak, was that my medical evidence of the foreign body that was removed from my neck was not consulted. So I don't know if you had the same impression, Katherine, considering that they also called you, I think, paranoid, yeah.
That amuses me the best, because I mean, they at least, you were a patient. I wasn't even a patient, so they must have analyzed me on the fly, as they were just looking at me like, oh yeah, she's paranoid. Well, that is just such an amazing skill for doctor to just diagnose people like that. That of course it doesn't exist. Any real doctor will tell you need to really examine the patient. That's the absolute first step. And what
at least the medical evidence,
exactly.
I should say.
Exactly.
Because what really struck me, and what really puzzled me, was that they said to me that you had obviously that you were obviously paranoid, that you had paranoid delusions, and they questioned me about this foreign body removed from my throat, and I said this is actually true, and you can look at the medical evidence if you're concerned about that. And they decided that, as I offered them to look at the medical evidence, and did not say, oh well, you're totally right, yeah, my friend is paranoid, and she suffers from delusions, that for them meant that I confirmed your paranoia. So I mean, it really struck me, because any doctor, if he or she hears this, is, in my opinion, at least obliged to look at the medical evidence to see what the patient, or the friend of the patient in this case, says is correct. So I was, as you said, I was really amazed by the arrogance and the how and this negligence I was treated with. It was really shocking to see, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in this case. So, and the number of false psychiatric diagnoses and false psychiatric commitments that we're still dealing with to this day seems to indicate that my assessment is correct.
Absolutely, and there's always in these situations of rampant misdiagnosis, all in the same direction. If they were just randomly scattered, one could assume incompetence. But when they're all in one direction, it's pretty clear that there's a state directive. In other words, we're dealing with state terrorism. And in every country, it's the same. For example, Dr. Reinhard Munzert, a psychologist himself, funnily enough, who first, to my knowledge, really scientifically documented directed energy weapon attacks in Germany. He was force committed. He's a healthy man, and he was force committed when he was retired. Then Frederic Laroche in France, he was force committed after he informed the French Parliament of these directed energy weapon attacks in a really harebrained, what looks like an entrapment operation by the biggest idiots of French Secret Service to me. Again, Dr. Bigochy pumped him full of drugs when he arrived and paralyzed his breathing for a day. Yeah, how insane is that? You were put into psychiatry, Melanie, as a healthy woman, and they poisoned you so that your father and I were shocked, that you were shaking. It was absolutely shocking because at the end of the day, even for psychiatrists, the first Hippocratic Oath's tenet is that, first do no harm. And what these morons did is do maximum damage as soon as people step through the door. And this is one thing. The other thing is for those people who are new to this entire topic and haven't followed us for the past year, let me just share my screen to tell you what the hell we're on about. So if you go to Techno Crime Fighters Forum 26, that's the episode here with the diagram, you can actually see the analysis of Melanie's throat implant. Let me just go to the minute mark. And where I'm holding up Melanie's implant and the scientific results that I took myself. This is a microscope analysis of the throat implant, and you can see white lines, and these are titanium fibers. And what you can see here is X-ray fluorescence. The implant itself, I'm showing, I think, to the screen as well. Where's this thing? Here. Okay, so at minute mark, what is that? 22 minutes, 30 seconds, you can see the throat implant. So these are all facts we're talking about, and scientific results that are, clearly discussed and shown publicly and have been known publicly for a very, very long time, including the proof that this throat implant contains titanium. That's this massive peak. So these white lines are all titanium fibers. Now, the human body does not have titanium in it. So this was the smoking gun evidence that Melanie had a synthetic throat implant that actually was used to strangulate her, and the second half is still in her throat and continues to strangulate her. Is that right, Melanie?
Well, yeah, the problem is not solved yet. That I can confirm, or not fully solved. Yes, I also wanted to say that actually, the panel that you were just showing, where we publicly explained the scientific results and the composition of this foreign body removed from my throat, the moderator, who's now unfortunately deceased, is Dr. Paul Marco, and he was a psychologist. So he was one of these who actually took a genuine interest in the subject and brought us together, and that were the beginnings of Techno Crime Fighters Forum. So this is just to say that there are also ethically motivated psychologists like the late Dr. Paul Marco, who also died in, I would say, rather suspicious circumstances. So we're very sorry that he's not here anymore. But he was a psychologist, and he was the one who was moderating this Techno Crime Fighters Forum until his death. I think earlier this year or end of last year. I can't quite remember. So and there's also a Canadian psychiatrist, Professor Gadgit, I think. I can look it up, from the University of Newfoundland in Canada, who actually wrote a peer-reviewed article in the medical journal of Pakistan about these weapons and the abuse of these weapons on the general population against ordinary citizens. So there are also mental health professionals that are not all, let's say, blindfolded, or to not say corrupt, that are actually taking a genuine interest in these subjects and want to help the victims. Hello? I think we've just lost Katherine. That sometimes happens. Hello?
Can you still hear me?
I don't know what happened.
I got thrown, my computer got interfered with. I think what we're saying is kind of
yeah.
edge of the tolerance of the intelligence agencies. So
yeah, might be. Well, we're used to that, to interference. Yeah, so I just said that there's also this Canadian psychiatrist, Professor Gadget from the University of Newfoundland in Canada, who wrote a peer-reviewed article that appeared in October 2009 in the medical journal of Pakistan, of the association, medical association, because he's of Pakistani origin. He wrote a long article about these weapons, and he was asking himself, well, how prepared are actually mental health professionals, considering that these new weapons exist and are used on the general population. So there are definitely also mental health professionals that are, as I said, maybe less blindfolded or not to say corrupt, that are looking into these subjects and generally want to do their bit to help victims and support them in their sufferance, and not, let's say, add to their torture and their misery in locking them possibly up in psychiatric wards, like it tends to happen, unfortunately, still too often.
Absolutely. And I've just, I also remembered that the other thing that they accused me of for being paranoid for is that I mentioned that the Secret Services are involved in this, and that we're working with Secret Service people. And I think they found it extremely strange. And one of the things I wanted to show, this is what I was bringing up when my computer crashed. Let me just share for all those people who are new to this. Also, the fact that we are working with the famous NSA whistleblower Karen Melton Stewart. So she worked for the NSA for 28 years, and you can see her in this episode discussing this implant with us. So for people, Karen held a top secret clearance for 28 years. So for people in the know, this is absolutely nothing unusual, So she is in a better position as an expert for weapons development and proliferation to judge what's reasonable and what isn't than some sort of psychiatrist. Also, one thing I wanted to remind people of is that Melanie and I were working in the joint investigation team. And if you go to the About section, you can find all of us here in one long list, because we're also working with Dr. Millicent Black and Ramola Damaraj. And Ramola is running the Everyday Concerned Citizen, a big news site. So very, very important. She also has her interviews online. But also one of the things I very quickly would like to mention is that under appeals, we have now launched the appeal for victim affidavits. And the affidavit form is now available to be filled out in OpenOffice format. So OpenOffice is just like Microsoft Word, but for free. So please download OpenOffice, and then the formatting is correct. I'm also writing some explanatory notes, and it should have been released last Thursday, but I got so shot into bits that I had to move my office into my car and flee my home. So I'm working from my car these days, and because of that, there was some delay. But the explanatory notes are coming, and then what we're doing is we are trying to help all these victims around the world who might be going through the same stuff that Melanie and I are reporting, namely directed energy weapon attacks, non-consensual implants, neurotechnology attacks, or being forced into psychiatry and all that. So we're doing several different things. We're trying to do the scanning for implants. We're also trying to prepare court cases worldwide, and this is what the affidavit template is for. We're also trying to lobby Parliament and politicians around the world. And we're also trying to get directed energy weapons banned. And I've just looked at the chat, and one question was, and that's to you, Melanie, as the president of ICATOR. The question was, is the scanning in autumn only for ICATOR members? And if so, why?
Yes, it's correct. It's only for ICATOR members because, this is one of the services we offer for people that do pay a membership, and especially because the scanning itself, as I explained at the beginning, one day costs us, as ICATOR, 1,500 euros. So we cannot pay that from our out of our own pockets. We used to do that, but we're victims too, so it's not possible, unfortunately. We do not have this kind of funds, and so the ICATOR members pay membership fee, and so this is included in the membership that we offer this to our members, the ones that want to get scanned. Then this is a possibility for the members. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for answering that. So that's exactly right. So we're trying to really get get people together. And the other point I was making in the chat also is that if people join ICATOR, ICATOR is a registered charity in Belgium, and because we're also trying to lobby Parliament, it's a show of strength. You are joining it officially. And this means that we can also show we have these member numbers. It's not just a fringe issue. If you just come to the scanning and disappear, that's nice and well. And, one day we can also offer that service. However, what we really need is, for you to step up with us and say no to this criminality. You don't have to be public yourself, but at least you have to show as a number so that we can say we have these members. And the bigger charity, the more seriously it is taken in Europe. I think that's fair to say. Wouldn't you say, Melanie? You worked with the European Commission and the Parliament for 20 years, I think.
I agree. I mean, you're part of a club, so to speak, but I don't want to call it a club. You have official legal representation or representation of your interests as a victim. So, as Katherine said, you don't have to come out publicly yourself, but you have somebody that looks out for your interests and represents them. So, because the other thing is what we're doing, and this is why I regularly go to the European Parliament to attend these meetings there dealing with the subject, is that we want to have appropriate EU legislation to be created to ban these kind of weapons, well, worldwide, but certainly in the European Union. So we want to outlaw these technologies, and they want to have them regulated. And this is the other big field where we're working in, and that I'm concerned with. So there are two things: let's say the lobbying towards the European Parliament, and the scanning. So that we offer our members, and we couldn't do this if we're relying on this membership fees because we also have running costs. We cannot pay for everything for ourselves. I mean, just the hosting of the website costs money, and I mean, it's anything that a regular office needs and has to have, so that we can keep this project going and defend the interests of our members the best we can.
Absolutely.
I would like to add that you can have this kind of services also to get scanned done by a private investigator. I know very few that do that. And the one who scanned our group, who also confirmed, for example, this nanotechnology in my body, the presence, from my knowledge, she's not doing this anymore. And also in general, I think a scan will usually cost you between 2,500 and 3,000 euros to have that done. So they're very expensive, and there are very few professionals that actually do this kind of body scans. So so it's actually you're much better off becoming an ICATOR member. Also financially, I think it's much more affordable.
Absolutely, I really think so. And also, most importantly, the report that you get is from one of the most highly regarded universities in the world for this subject. So, you do get that with it as well. So people don't have a problem with recognizing the words of that professor, I would say. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I won't. It will be, if it's positive, it will be absolutely acceptable scientific proof in any court case.
Yeah, and I guess we can also say that the professor is also highly regarded, by one of the leading experts on microwave weapons in the whole of Belgium and France. So I think this guy is
with
top.
whom we are also working. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So we really do have a top team, and the entire idea is to really establish something in Europe where victims can go. And unfortunately, we know from our work that there are so many people who are implanted, because this was meant to be a business plan for the future, that you will be whacked full of biosensors and microchips that can be remote controlled and can cause symptoms of all kinds in a remote controlled fashion. And then you can be acid stripped, in other words, milked for the money you would put into the drugs and painkillers that you would buy to get rid of the pain or get rid of the symptoms. So sadly, we do find a lot of people who are chipped, and including children, sadly.
Yes, and as the psychiatrist Professor Gardit, of the University of Newfoundland, writes in his article, the symptoms or the complaints, let's say, that the victims of directed energy weapons attacks and non-consensual experimentation with implant weapons usually describe actually mimic the symptoms of known psychiatric illnesses, which makes it even more difficult for uninformed psychiatrists to establish the right diagnosis and not the wrong one, which means a psychiatric illness. And so this is also, of course, then big business for the pharma industry, because once you are in a psychiatric world and in these cycles, it's a never-ending story, and you will be constantly prescribed these pharmaceutical drugs that have a lot of effects, by the way, that are certainly not innocent in terms of health risks, that you will, let's say, enter this never-ending cycle of prescription drugs. And once you're misdiagnosed, probably you spend your life in misery, being forced to take these very sometimes dangerous drugs. So this is a very concerning subject. And because Katherine talked about business plans, well, in terms of financial revenues, that this psychiatrization and prescription drugs prescribing generates, it's certainly really quite an important sum. So yeah, we are here to help victims, to provide them with scientific evidence that then in fact not mentally ill, but victims of a highly sophisticated technology and a high-tech crime.
Yeah, and I was talking about high tech. I was trying to keep an eye on the chat, and I've just seen Targeted Ireland asked if jammers, frequency jammers, are legal and if they help. Now, I personally do not have any experience of jammers, because I do not get voice to skull. I do have an ear chip, and I spoke into my ear once, so I know what it sounds like. It sounds literally like, like as if you had earphones in, just like earphones, but the earphones are, of course, very, very small. But I don't actually have regular voice to skull that I could experiment around. So, but one of the things I do know is that somebody in the UK talked about something that's called the Q-Wave Defender. And there's something called, I think, a pocket-sized one and a tabletop-sized one. It does cost a lot of money. And to me, it looked like exactly some sort of jammer device. So it's an antenna array, and I think it creates probably an oscillating field that is, messing up the chips and the signal that they're receiving. But this particular victim in the UK, who actually did a lot of, searching for remedies, because he gets voice to skull, he said that actually the voice to skull doesn't disappear, but it's subdued. So it's kind of, I think it's quieter, or it's not as frequent, or something like that. And that to me sounds like a jammer. So it's called the Q-Wave Defender. Please, raise the money, use crowdfunding for that, and try it out, because we have to find a solution. And if many people confirm that this really works, because you never know, are his perps playing with him or what is happening? But if many people confirm that this works, then we can advertise it as a possible help, if not end solution. And more importantly, then I can really start looking into it and try to reverse engineer what's happening. So I haven't.
Well, personally, I used the Q-Wave Defender. I ordered it some time ago. I must say that did not stop at all the attacks. There was literally no effect for me. I have spoken to people that do have it and that said that it helps a few days or so, but then apparently they found a way to, well, around it, and then they, after a few days, it wasn't working anymore because the attacks started.
Yeah, so this is
So
really.
I don't know if it's really something advisable. I do not want to advise victims to spend a lot of money on something that, until now at least, I mean, I'm speaking for me, it has not helped. And the few victims that I've talked to that have used it all said that after some time they found a way around it apparently, and the attacks resumed.
This is really interesting because at least for a few days, it sounds like it's possible to confound them, which indicates that jammers do help, but maybe they figure out the algorithm used by these Q-wave defenders. So that what this person told me in the UK is, and I should ask him for the precise statements for next time, is that he said, I think he wears two in his pocket with the little pocket-sized ones, and at home he has the tabletop one, and it really helps him sleep. So much about it, but at least it indicates that jamming is a way to go for these signals, which is what I would expect. Because here's what I know about these ear implants. So the people who I've seen, they typically have scars behind the ear, and it to me it very much looks like what's implanted there is the antenna, because the antenna is always a bit longer than the chip itself. There's also a victim who told me that the antenna was inside the ear canal, and when she pulled it out, it was literally like a little curved thing, which again sounds like an antenna to me. You would expect an antenna, you would expect a chip. One of the things that I'm really working towards is I would encourage everybody with voice to skull quickly get an X-ray of your head, and I think that's fairly easy to do if you go to the dentist. If you've got a dentist who knows this, or I think there are certain symptoms that you can just make up, that you've got, this type of headache, and then quickly doctors do an X-ray. This is what one of the doctors I know told me. It's like, hey, if people need an X-ray, just say this to your GP and then you'll get a head X-ray. But then, you have to get one where you can see the ear part. And the X-rays I've seen of the head, you can actually see little square plates behind the ear, which very much looks like these new medical implants that help the hard of hearing hear, and even deaf people can hear by using bone conduction and stuff like that. So that is one way that you can get, first of all, the evidence. And my personal view is that if we quickly get together these court cases, which is where the affidavit template comes in, and we just whack the judges with the evidence that this is really going on, it should be possible to get a court injunction against the secret services and against the telecommunication companies who at the very end of the day are helping to transmit these signals to basically you have a little microphone, a little mobile phone in your ear, but it has to go over a signals chain that one can get an injunction for. So my personal view is that's the quickest way to do it. And, the other thing is also to get these implants out implies you need to get an operation. Not everybody wants that. So personally, I think the quickest way to do it is just tell these bastards to just shut up and cut communicating with the ear implants. So that's my view, just what I'm working towards. We had two things that we wanted to mention briefly. Oh yes, just very briefly. I wanted to release the big news today for everybody who is in Australia. I would like to point you to my Twitter channel, because today on Twitter something really big happened. I mean, people have been trying to collect evidence to this effect for a long time, and there is evidence from other Hello, I'm so sorry. This is absolutely hilarious. So of course the intelligence agencies knows exactly what I'm about to show you guys, and the fact that I was thrown again shows you that it's kind of like a sensitive issue. So please let me share my screen one more time. This time it should work. And I wanted to show you something that just blew my mind today, because okay, what this entire topic is about is the following. So for a very, very long time, people were trying to prove that the police services are involved really big time in the gang stalking. And today, somebody, I'm just looking for the evidence. Where is it? Here. So yes, here we are. Let me share my screen. And so today, one person in Australia uploaded a video, and it's this one here. It's you find it on my Twitter, which is @stop007.org. If you scroll down to my tweet number 2500, I'm already linking it, and then in the tweet above you'll see the direct link, and it is has been tweeted by @1_stalking, and this is a gentleman. I've got his name here. I think it was Andre Joseph Picard. And he called Australian police and he complained about the break-ins and the harassment that he's experiencing. And they pretty much confessed to his face that they are running it. So he said he wants to be excluded from this. And the lady on the phone told him that he has to get in touch with so-and-so at the police if he wants to get off this harassment list. And I think it turns out that in Australia, this is, I think, South Wales, what's it called? New South Wales Police. It turns out to be a so-called suspect targeting management plan that this is associated with. Okay, suspect targeting management plan. And I've also tweeted this report, what this sort of stuff is. But what is most mind-blowing is on the Twitter feed. If you go to his YouTube, you can actually hear the audio recording of the call to the police. And it is absolutely mind-blowing because the police officer he talks to pretty much admits that they are doing the gang stalking in Australia. And when I was listening, I listened to the video twice, and I jumped up from my chair and I was cheering because this evidence is worth gold in court. Number one, it means that everybody, and I mean everybody, in Australia who's in this gang stalking program can go straight to court and sue the government and sue the police for this domestic terror program that is run on them, because you have pretty much a police officer admitting that they are breaking into people's homes for harassment. You know, when you really cut it down, that's essentially what she's admitting to right there. You know, she was not surprised at all. She didn't say on the phone, "What are you telling me? People keep breaking into your homes, and what are you telling me about? Never heard about this criminality in Australia." No, instead she's cool as a cucumber, and she says, "Oh yeah, well, you know, if you want to get off the list, you have to get in charge with talk with so and so, and he's in, unfortunately, come back Monday." So, whoa, you know, pretty big deal. But it's even a bigger deal than that, because we already in the past, victims have uncovered the recruitment video for the gang stalkers in Canada. So we have already, something in Canada, we've got something in Australia, and in the UK, there's something called the PREVENT program, which also has been linked, and we're solidifying those links with this gang stalking terror program. And there are other links to the UK police showing that they're involved. And what is building Canada, UK, Australia, and in the US, our colleague Karen Melton Stewart, she tracked down the gang stalking program to Lockheed Martin, working for the fusion centers. So in the US, we have already links to an arms contractor and a government contractor and the government. So slowly we can prove that across the entire Five Eyes network, this domestic terror is being run by the police, by the FBI, by the fusion centers, by big, arms contractors and stuff like that. And kaboom, what we really have in court is a lot of liability and, claims for damages and tort against them. And all I'm saying is, if you really want to get a lot of money in court, you better sue somebody who is very, very rich. And people like, or institutions like the government, the police, the intelligence agencies, and especially Lockheed Martin are very, very rich, I'm told. So look forward to the court cases, and thank you to Andre Joseph Picard for really blowing this wide open in Australia, because it's one of the missing links. So thank you,
Gretchen. Really, really interesting. And I don't know if I just actually now here in my top right hand corner, just now this the live icon went on. So I hope we have been live before, but you told me that we were. I would like to add to this. I can maybe put this here in the chat. That here in Belgium there's a criminologist who wrote very interesting articles about the organized harassment, commonly known as organized stalking or gang-stalking. And it's in French, but this, I don't know if you can open it, this article explains these, covert harassment techniques. And it was also this article, Vers la problématique d'un harcèlement criminel en réseau, was actually published in the, it's in the Revue Internationale de Criminologie, de Police Technique et Scientifique, so the international magazine of criminology and for the technical police. And what I wrote there is that it was actually quite interesting to read, that the police is very well aware of these harassment techniques and programs, and that they're getting the directive that once a victim comes and complains about illegal entries into the home, ransacking of the property, illegal surveillance, that they're actually trained to turn down the complaints of the victim, or to ridicule them, or say, well, it's all in your mind, this is paranoia, that is not going on, and you're imagining these things. So I find that very interesting, that there is a criminologist who actually worked with the Brussels police and wrote about the subject, and that also usually what is done when victim of this kind of harassment, covert harassment, comes to the police and complains about it, that the police is instructed to minimize his complaints, or so to speak, blow him or her off. So I found that very interesting. And the abstract is in English, so the English speakers can read this.
I also would like to. So I think this is a great link, and one of the things that you can also do if you're using Google Chrome is you can activate Google Translate as an app.
Right.
I just clicked on this, and one of the things that it does, it runs through the page and turns everything to English or your chosen language. And I have to say, this translation tool is excellent. And here is a direct comparison. This was in French and got translated to English by Google Translate, and this is the original English translation by the authors, and I think the two are pretty identical. But then further down the page, now everything that was in French has now been turned to English. So my point is, if you do this, you can then go to Control P, so print, and then if you need this for court cases, you can print it off in English. I hope you guys can see this. I've just turned it into an entirely English PDF using Google Translate, and it will then generate 17 pages from this article that you can print off straight away to PDF, and then you can stick it straight into your court cases. I think this is a fantastic link, Melanie, and I think what we should do is I think I can post it in the chat if I'm lucky. Sorry, where's the chat? Here.
Hopefully that works, yeah.
Yeah, let's see if that works. Yeah, that seems to have worked. So people in the chat can see this straight away. And then I'll also post it below the video later on, so that people can also find it in the description, be below the YouTube video here.
Yeah, very good. Well, I think for today we're almost through. This is what we wanted to announce.
Absolutely.
Once again, to to terminate in beauty, so to speak, I would like to ask people to donate so that we can, schedule the second member scanning very, very quickly, hopefully in September, October. Please, Katherine, could you once again show how people can donate, the GoFundMe page and the joiner section with the ICATOR IBAN number? And we hope that we're lucky again and get the last 2/3 in, which amount to about €1,000, so that we can schedule the member scanning.
Absolutely. I will show the page now, and then I have just got a quick announcement to make myself. So if you would like to donate, please donate to ICATOR. Go to icator.be, because there you will find both methods for donation. If you are in the US, we suggest you go to GoFundMe here. That's the link here. And then you, by clicking here on Donate Now, you're taken through to our to ICATOR's GoFundMe page here, and then clicking on this button, which should appear in English for you, you can go and donate straight away. The disadvantage is that by donating through GoFundMe, 5% goes as a platform fee to GoFundMe. It will not reach us. But I think for the people in the US, this might be a cheap way to do that. Alternatively, if you are in Europe, and especially if you are in the Eurozone, we recommend you go to Join Us and you pick up the bank details of ICATOR. So that you can find here at the very bottom, the ICATOR bank details. And if you're within the Eurozone or within Europe, it is the cheapest thing is if you use your online banking and you just do a direct bank transfer to this IBAN number here. And the BIC code is stated there. Because within Europe, it should be for free for you to do a bank transfer. And then finally, actually, one of the ways that people in the US can donate to us, or to ICATOR rather, and it doesn't incur the bank transfer fee. This is something that I've discovered. May I just take you to my website, because it might be interesting for people in the US in general. If you go to my website, stop007.org, and you scroll down here to this tiger, which is the Invest in Progress, I have found this website called TransferWise. You will find the link here. And I explain how you can donate to bank accounts from the US in US dollars. And you will not be charged with these, frankly, rip-off fees of $25 to $30, okay, per bank transfer. I have to say, for people in Europe, this is absolutely egregious. We are making bank transfers, so wire transfers, for absolutely free. And you guys in the US spend something like $25 to $30. I think you're being ripped off big time. But if you create a TransferWise account, you can upload money to TransferWise if you use the option load by direct debit. That is totally for free. And once it's within a TransferWise account, you can make a transfer to any US account for free again. So you can use that to donate to Europe. You can also use that, to donate to other people or to make bank transfers to your friends and family for absolutely for free forever after. And every single time you do, you're saving $25 to $30. So I think that is worth your time. And also a small side effect, if you use the link on my website to sign up with TransferWise, then I will get the referral fee and I can funnel it back into helping victims. So that's also a good thing to do. So great. I think that's, you've got everything to support us. And then finally, in the last 30 seconds, I just would like to say, briefly in my own case, but I think many victims are exactly in the same situation. I am now here in Zurich being machine gunned most of the time into the head, but also to the rest of my body continuously. I have passed a cease and desist request to my neighbors, which they have ignored. I am being machine gunned to smithereens. I get light flashes and shots through my eyes and through my brain every single night, especially in the night. And there's nothing I can do to make these neighbors stop personally. So I really need help here, because the truth is that my brain is being damaged systematically. So one of the things that is the next step, as I'm preparing my court case, is I'm going to take the neighbors to court and I'm going to take the neighbors to court who are most likely responsible for this. I know that at least 4 neighbors in all 4 directions, east, west, north, south, must be involved. And at the end of the day, I can't tell precisely who it is, but I've got other reasons to suspect people. For example, the placing of a big fat satanic goat, or, you know, a crunched up car, you know, in the front garden. But anyway, I leave it open, but I have my main suspects, and I'm now going to send a letter to them, which I have now composed. And there are many, many letters here for each of the neighbors, and it's a notification of upcoming court cases, and that I will actually charge them as the main subjects of crime against humanity. And in many jurisdictions, it's kind of, you know, sometimes mandatory that you notify people before you take them to court. So this will be my letter, and I will upload the original letters to all the neighbors to prove to the public that I've made this notification to them as a final call and a final request that they stop shooting me. I will also upload not just the paper in German. I will also upload the original, the template that you can adopt yourself if you know who your neighbors are. But I'll also upload an English translation. So wherever you are in Germany, in German-speaking Switzerland, or in an English-speaking country, you can immediately today do the same thing that I'm going to do tomorrow morning, which is post these letters to the neighbors. And it is the notification of crimes against humanity, and it's saying, I'm taking you to court. And then as a caveat, I'm not accusing anybody personally. I say you're either guilty, in which case, you know, I'm going to sue you and you're liable with your personal wealth. Or if you're not guilty, please keep this letter, you know, carefully keep it for future, because you too have a claim against the government and Swiss Secret Services, because, you know, you are one of my neighbors and half the shots reflect off into you. And if you develop cancer at any future time, or degenerative neurological diseases or problems with your eyes, you have a claim against the government, because I can prove that I continue to be shot at. And talking about proof, I have made a 3-hour video as I'm sleeping at night, so you can watch me sleep. But most importantly, you can hear a non-stop patter of shots as I'm sleeping under my desk in this metal bunker, which, as you can see, is reinforced with metal. And that is the ultimate proof that I continue to be shot at with military-grade weapons, because they actually shoot through the metal shed. So I'm explaining all this because I know that many, many victims are in the same situation. If you continue to be shot at, these are the steps you can take. And then, you know, you can make the same sort of evidence videos that I'm making. You can use, if you want to, the very same letters. And also, you can download my letters to my neighbors and put them straight into your court case and argue, you know, referring to my case, that, well, you know, Dr. Katherine Horton in Switzerland has done exactly the sort of campaigns I'm doing. So I'm not alone. This is not crazy. This is nothing unusual. In fact, this is what one needs to do. So if you do it together, no one can jump on us individually. So,
and to finish maybe with a funny little anecdote, although it's not that funny. Before the show, you told me, you showed me some very odd decorations your next door neighbors have in their garden. Maybe you could show this to our viewers, because I do indeed think that there's something a little odd going on here.
Oh gosh, yes. So absolutely, you're right. So, and this is, I'm showing this to basically encourage all the victims who have exactly this sort of nonsense happening to just photograph it and make it public. Because, as Melanie says, so I've already made public how I've got a black life-sized goat that appeared on one flat roof next to my house, just, you know, the day when I survived my first assassination attempt. But now another neighbor, let me show the image. I will show the image from my kitchen window. This is what the view looks like from my kitchen window, because the new neighbors, fairly new neighbors, who've been living there for I think a year or a year and a half. So this is the view from my kitchen window here, and the neighbors, I think Egli and Ernie, living there. One happy day, they decided to place, so this is their front yard, And one day they decided to place the wreck of a car wreck, into their front garden. And this car wreck is massive. It was dropped off with a crane. And it just so happens that the tire shows a pentagram here that I can see quite clearly. But it just so happens that I'm regularly almost run off the motorway with the secret services in Europe trying to make me have a car crash. I'm getting, death threats regularly about me being killed in car accidents and so on and so on. And then my neighbors put a car wreck into their front garden, with the car wreck having a color identical to the color of my car. So that already was eyebrow raising. So this happened a while back, so I find this extremely strange, and I'm staring at this every single day out of my kitchen window, which personally I consider to be a death threat in itself. But that aside, now after I made the neighbor campaign and I said I'm being assaulted with directed energy weapons, my neighbors in a little, they had, I think, a dinner party out in the garden, and they thought it was highly amusing to put this contraption into their garden, which is this kind of metal panel and this metal dish pointing at my house. And then they've got this, what looks like an electrical cable running up a pole. And the points here and here are actually flashing lights. And when they put it up with their friends who came over to dinner, these things were flashing red. So I just walked into my kitchen and I had WTF written across my face, because all I could see were two bright red flashing lights drawing attention to this contraption. And I literally thought, my goodness, my neighbors put the, whatever, the Hubble telescope or the European Space Station into their front garden, because I couldn't see what the hell this was. And the next day, I could see what this actually was. And I thought, hang on, this looks like a step ladder here, left and right. And that looks like, I don't know what, and it was very, very funny. And this is what Melanie is referring to, because today I was standing in the kitchen washing the dishes, and I looked out and I had the next door neighbor sheepishly, look at my window and then walk over and disassemble this thing. And it turns out this and this, left and right, is a step ladder. And he sheepishly put it to one side. This in the middle is actually a metal sink, which he lifted up and carried off. And then he disentangled all the stuff. It turns out these are bike lights. And this gray metal pole, that turns out to be somewhere where you can hang your clothes. And then he was, it turned out that his wife, had to wash the clothes. And that's when the joke, had to be terminated. And then they spent their time hanging little, shirts and panties into the garden. And I have to say, I was watching him do that, and I actually filmed it for evidence to show that this is really a kitchen sink. And I just thought, my God, that is a walk of shame in my view, because I've now involved, and this is serious. This is what these people don't understand. This is not a joke. I'm actually being hurt. I'm actually being mutilated every night, and these people make a fucking joke out of it. But I know that many, many victims are in exactly this sort of situation, with your neighbors making fun and being civilian participants in crimes against humanity. And I just encourage you, just photograph these morons, and we will ridicule them forever after. So,
Yeah, and because you just said, well, hanging little, T-shirts and panties and whatever in the garden, I just would like to add that I'm still getting a lot of requests regarding what happened with my daughter, if I have her back now, if I have my baby back. I saw that in the last video that we did, there were a lot of comments like this also, people wondering what was happening. So thank you very much for all this concern. Unfortunately, the use procedure is still running, so I cannot answer these requests and these concerns positively yet. I would also like to thank the ones like Jacqueline and Jacqueline M. and others who have been so kind and nice to have sent me little baby clothes and little presents. So I've obviously been very touched by this and all the continued interest in my destiny. and in what happened, you know, coming from all over the world, basically these requests and well wishes and questions. I will certainly report once this whole saga has hopefully finished positively. But thank you again for all your interest and for the presence. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have to say we will fight, Melanie, to get the baby back, and when we do, we'll throw the biggest party ever, and then these people will have it coming so big.
Yeah.
There's absolutely, whatever happens, you know, we'll get the baby back, and I'm just shocked. I'm just really shocked at what happened, and my God, I am so angry at these people for what they have done to you and your family. And I swear that I'll just fight to the end of days to get the baby back and actually make up for everything that was done to your family. And you know, I swear one of the things we'll get is the biggest, fattest amount of compensation. You know, so your daughter can look forward to, on her 18th birthday, receiving her red Ferrari. You know. This is one of the
I must say it was also not you know, not your fault. It was you know, you only spoke about my medical problem out of concern. So what followed was certainly not foreseeable and a great shock to everybody in the whole community. So
I have to say I'm still under shock, and you know, never ever would I have ever anticipated that me just being really concerned about you not being able to breathe and just saying the truth would ever lead to that. If I had known, of course, I would have never ever said that. You know, I was just, it's the first live operation I saw, and I just thought if something goes wrong and they have to put a tube into your throat and there's an obstruction, you know, oh my God, you know, stuff can go so badly wrong. So, but anyway, I still think people should be able to utter medical concerns, and what happened after that, and what they did to you gratuitously, you know, carting you off at midnight and interrogating you at Hospital Brugman and then falsifying the psychiatrist report, that to me is already a red flag to a bull, you know. But first of all, we have to get the baby back. That's the most important thing. And this is also why we can't go into great detail, because the court case is still running, and everything that we say now will be used against you, first of all, you know, as an excuse. So I hope people understand why we can't keep you updated. It's not because we keep you in the dark. It's because we're trying to protect Melanie and her baby. But you can be sure that as soon as the baby's back, you know, things will look different. Things will take a very different
turn. We're looking forward to brighter days, let's say.
Exactly. So,
well, anyway. Okay, that was it for today, and we really hope that we'll get a lot of donations so that we can schedule the university scanning.
Exactly.
ASAP, as I say. And I personally commit myself to that. I will organize this as soon as we can. So
absolutely.
Thanks again to our donors, our generous donors that we had until now, Anne Amalia, Hannelore, and a few others also that sent us smaller amounts, but certainly also appreciated. Thank you very much, and let's move on.
Exactly.
So that whatever. The project can continue and succeed.
Exactly, and know that your donation is really flowing into helping not just Melanie or just me or just the members of ICATOR. They're really helping to blow the biggest crime of, you know, crimes against humanity of this century wide open, because it's about the implanting of adults and also children, and implanting people sometimes at birth, you know. So this has to be brought open, and you're also funding leading research. You know, somebody in the chat said this is active science, this is live science and applied science, and that's exactly what it is. We have to reverse engineer using science and scientific methods what these criminals have done, and we will. And to everybody, to all of you who are being tortured with these implants and who are getting voice to skull, I'm not getting voice to skull, which is, you know, a Nazi terror, you know, one scale up. but I do get chip torture that cripples me and sometimes makes me throw up and makes me, not be effective throughout the day. I know what you're going through, and know that all this pain and suffering is coming to an end very, very, very soon. And when this hits the courts, this will just obliterate the criminals who are doing this to you. So, just take courage in the knowledge that we are moving forward and we will make progress, whatever these bastards do. That's my final words. So thank you for listening, and please donate to Melanie's ICATOR. Please hit the donate button tonight, and let's get the show on the road. So
absolutely. And speaking about show, this is going to be my last words, is that we would like to announce to the German speakers that we haven't done a German speaking show now for some time. This was because we were busy and entangled in all of these kind of activities, but to help the members. But there will be another one this Friday, 3rd of August, and at the usual time, I think 9 o'clock. We'll try to be on time this time. So this is just to say to the German speakers that there will also be another version from Techno-Kriminal-Ermittler this Friday coming, and we're looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Absolutely. So I'll also just want to say that people were asking me in the chat to meet me in person. It's quicker to just say it in words right now, because I'm kind of exposed and I'm working towards court cases. For my own safety, I can't meet people in person. Please understand. But what I can do is I'm now restarting my consulting sessions, so I can talk to you on Skype and just work just on your case with you for an hour for how long you need. And this is one thing we'll do to also get your court cases up to scratch. So, now that I have the affidavit templates out of the way, I am available to be booked again, so I'll make time for you. And I really want to work with all of you on your individual cases. You can ask me anything you want, and we will also get that started. So please forgive me if I don't meet you in person here in Zurich. I really, really can't, because I wouldn't know, who you are and what I'm getting into. And right now, we both need to kind of protect ourselves, Melanie as well. And we'll try to meet you at the scanning for sure, and you can ask us all the questions you have the entire day, and we'll be there to support you. And I should say that on the day of the scanning, when other people are being scanned, I will also make an effort to be there and, fly in from Zurich and answer all the questions that you have, and, work on your court cases and all that. So this is the plan, this is what we're offering. So please donate, please get this show up and running, and please download this video, re-upload it onto your channel, spread the word, try to get even more people on board. And I should say that this video, once it's uploaded, I'll change the setting to Creative Commons license. And what this means is that you can freely re-upload it to your channel. You can be sure that you're never, ever going to be sued by us that, my goodness, you used our video material and stuff like that. So please spread the word, spread it on Facebook and everywhere. Upload it on absolutely every platform, and help us to raise the funds. So thank you for listening, and talk to you soon. And next time, talk next Friday auf Deutsch. So,
absolutely. Bye for now.
Bye for now.